I was 36 years old the night my family found out what I actually did for a living, and it happened because a scaffold came down on a man named Eli Marsh, and someone needed a name to put on the paperwork that wasn't theirs. They picked mine. They didn't know they were picking wrong. They didn't know what I'd spent 9 years becoming, while they told everyone I did something with permits. They didn't know what was already sitting in a state database with my badge number on it. And by the time they figured it out, I'd already decided exactly how slowly I was going to let them find out. Welcome back. If you've ever been the family's afterthought, stay close. You're going to want to see how this one ends. Drop a comment if you've been here. Let's get into it. My name's Nora Vance. My family owns 4 boutique hotels across 2 states, and my older brother Preston is the face of all of them. 39, silver at the temples early, announced for city council in March with the flagship hotel as his backdrop. That hotel, the Aldridge, was mid-renovation. Investors were flying in for a launch event on the 18th. The scaffolding on the east wing needed one more inspection sign-off before code allowed anyone near it. Preston didn't want to wait for the inspection. Investors don't wait either. I found out what he did 3 days after it happened, at my father's 70th birthday, in the lobby of the hotel my family built, and I was never allowed to run. There's a check-in ledger at the Aldridge's front desk, old-fashioned, brass-cornered, a prop more than a tool now, but every Vance still signs it when they walk in, the way we've done since I was 9. Tradition, my mother calls it. I call it a leash with good lighting. I signed it. I went to find my seat, and on the wall behind the bar, there's a row of framed press clippings. Every renovation, every ribbon cutting, going back 15 years. I'm in exactly one of them, standing in the back, unlabeled. That's the part nobody in my family ever noticed. Nobody decided to erase me, they just never thought to include me in the first place, and after a while that starts to feel the same. By 11, the party had thinned to family. Preston was on his 4th scotch, still working the room like there were cameras in it. My mother mentioned, almost offhand, that the scaffold crew had gone home early Thursday because of a scheduling thing. Preston said the word fine twice, fast, the way people say a word to close a door on it. I went to bed in my old room, 2nd floor, the one with my sister's prom dresses still bagged in the closet like I'm just visiting. I didn't think about the scaffolding again. I should have. The call came at 7:40 the next morning. Not a call to me, a call to my father, on the house line, loud enough that I heard it through 2 walls. A man was in surgery. Compound fracture, crush injury, name of Eli Marsh, 49 years old, foreman on the East Wing crew. He'd been under that scaffold at 6 a.m., doing a walkthrough nobody authorized, and it came down on him. My father was in his study with the door shut by 8, which never happens before 9. My mother was already on the phone with someone named Halloran, and I recognized the tone, the make this go away tone. I came downstairs for coffee and found the check-in ledger sitting open on the kitchen island. Not the front desk, the kitchen island. Someone had brought it home. And there was a legal pad next to it, and a name already written at the top in my father's handwriting. Nora, safety sign-off. Here's what you need to understand about that hotel's permit system. It's not paper anymore. It's an app called SiteLog. Every safety walk, every inspection, every badge scan gets a timestamp on a state server the second it happens. You can't backdate it. You can't fake a sign-off after the fact. You can, however, put a name in a paper ledger that never touches a server at all. They wanted me to write my name next to Final Inspection, Complete, in a book that no state agency would ever check, because as far as my family knew, I was the girl who did something with compliance paperwork for the company, low enough on the ladder to be disposable, high enough on the org chart to be believable. What they didn't know is that I hadn't worked for the family company in 6 years. I sat down across from that legal pad, and my father didn't even look up from his coffee. He just said, "You were the last one to walk that site before the crew left Thursday. That's what we're telling people." I asked him if that was true. He said, "It's what's useful." My mother came around the island the way she does, warm hands, cold timing, and she held my face like she used to when I was small and said, "Preston has the council announcement in 11 days, sweetheart. You understand why it has to be you." Preston didn't even look up from his phone. He said, "Who's going to check? You're not exactly a name anyone knows." And there it is. 14 words that told me exactly what this family had filed me under for 6 years running. Safe to spend. I picked up my coffee. I did not pick up the pen. I want to tell you something about myself now, because this is the part my family got catastrophically wrong, and it's the reason the next 19 days went the way they did. I am a state building compliance investigator. I've been one since I was 29. I don't work for hotels. I audit them, along with restaurants, hospitals, and construction sites, for the State Department that decides whether a scaffold was legal to stand under in the first place. My family thinks the title on my badge says coordinator. It says investigator. Nobody in that house ever asked to see it. And on the morning Eli Marsh went into surgery, I understood something my father hadn't done the math on. The state doesn't need my family's ledger. The state has site logs, server logs already, time-stamped, untouchable, and within 11 days, a case number was going to get assigned to the Aldridge renovation, whether anyone in that kitchen liked it or not. The only real question left was whether I was going to let them build a version of that morning with my name pasted onto the front of it before the truth arrived, or whether I was going to make sure the truth got there first. I chose the second one. And I want to be honest, for about a minute at that kitchen island, I wanted to choose the first, because the first one came with an invitation back into a family that had never fully let me in. I didn't touch the ledger. I didn't sign anything. I told my father I needed air, and I drove 40 minutes to the county records office and requested, under my actual title, on state letterhead, a hold on the Aldridge's compliance file, effective immediately, pending review. It took 9 minutes. It's the most boring form I've ever filled out, and it was the single most important thing I did all month, because from that moment forward, nobody could quietly edit a permit, backdate an inspection, or clarify a timeline without it showing up as an amendment with my agency's watermark on it. My family found out Tuesday, when Halloran the lawyer called my father to say the file had a hold flag and he couldn't get it lifted. My father didn't ask me about it at dinner. He just watched me pass the bread for a second and a half longer than a father watches a daughter he thinks he already understands completely. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't really a story about scaffolding. It's about what happens the first time the family's spare part refuses to be installed. If someone in your life has you filed under useful but disposable, tell me in the comments. I read every one. Now let me tell you what my mother tried next, because she's better at this than anyone gives her credit for. Thursday, she invited me to lunch. Just us, her choice of restaurant, the one with the good bread. She waited until dessert to say it. "Preston's numbers dip if this becomes a story about negligence," she said. "But if it becomes a story about a family that takes responsibility, that's different. That's forgivable. Voters forgive people who own their mistakes, Nora." I asked her whose mistake she meant. She smiled and said, "Does it matter if it saves the family?" That's the sentence I've turned over every day since. Not did you do it, not are you okay. Just, does it matter? I told her no. She reached across the table, took my hand, and said the line I now understand had been the actual plan the entire time. "Come back to us, Nora. Really back. Sundays, holidays, all of it. All you have to do is let this be about Preston's stress, not his shortcuts. I looked at her for a long moment, and I realized the offer wasn't a bribe. It was a mirror. She was showing me exactly how much I still wanted to belong to people who had never once asked what I actually did with my days. I said no again. She paid for lunch anyway. That's my mother. She never lets a losing hand look like one. Eli Marsh woke up from his second surgery on a Tuesday. I went to see him. Not as family, not as press, just as a woman with a badge who visits people the system failed. His wife, Renata, was in the corner chair with a crossword she never opened. She told me he'd run that crew for 11 years and never once let a man near unsecured scaffolding, until Thursday, when the site manager told him the safety walk was already logged and to get moving before the investor tour. Already logged. Before it happened. That's the sentence that broke the case open, and Renata Marsh had no idea she'd just handed it to me. The state hearing was scheduled for the second week of the month. 2 days before it, Preston tried something I genuinely didn't see coming. He showed up at my apartment, no phone in his hand, for the first time in the 11 years I'd known him to carry one everywhere. He didn't apologize. I want you to sit with that, because it matters. He sat on my couch and told me about being 19 and being handed a 5-year plan for his life by our father in one sitting, no negotiation. He said, "Do you know what it's like being the only thing this family invested in?" I did know, actually, from the other side of it. Then he asked me to consider delaying the site log data pull. Not lying, just slow walking it past the council announcement. Same family logic, softer language. I told him the data didn't care about his calendar. He left without saying goodbye, and on his way out he straightened his collar in my hallway mirror, and I watched the candidate switch back on behind his eyes like a light. The hearing was in a state administrative building with fluorescent lights and folding chairs. Nothing dramatic about the room at all, which somehow made what happened inside it hit harder. My father sat in the second row in a suit. My mother had her hands folded like church. Preston's attorney opened by asking the obvious question: how could a family possibly not know their own daughter held a state investigator's badge? I answered it myself, on the record, because I'd promised myself I would. Because I let them not know. For 6 years, I let it be easier that way. I'm done making it easy. Then the state's own time-stamped logs went into evidence. The safety walk marked complete at 5:52 a.m., 40 minutes before the scaffold crew even badged onto the site. A sign-off for an inspection that hadn't happened yet, entered by a login that traced back to the site manager. On instructions, Preston had texted him at 5:40 that morning. "Just log it, we don't have time." Preston stood up before his own attorney could stop him. Same instinct as every cornered candidate I've ever watched testify, the camera reflex kicking in during the one setting that has no cameras, and said the sentence I think he'd been holding since Thursday morning: one bad call. People make one bad call their whole career and it costs them nothing. I don't get that. Nobody in that room agreed with him. You could feel it. Preston lost the license to operate the Aldridge's East Wing pending a full compliance rebuild. He suspended his council campaign 11 days later, called it family time, which is the only true thing he said in the entire statement. My father wasn't charged. The district attorney looked hard at the ledger and decided intent was too thin to prove against him alone. That sat badly with me for about a month. Then it stopped, because I understood the hearing was never going to give me everything. It gave me the one thing that mattered: Eli Marsh's case, in writing, with my family's name nowhere near his medical bills. Eli's back at the site now, 3 days a week, supervising from a chair while the East Wing gets rebuilt to code, this time for real. I stop by, he charges me for coffee. I let him. My mother sent one letter after the hearing. No apology in it, just a photograph of me, at 8 years old, holding a dog we had for 2 years, and on the back, kitchen, anytime, no conditions. I haven't gone yet. I might. Not this year. Here's what I've decided, and it's the only thing I really want you to take from this. My family always ran on the version of events that was convenient. That part was never a secret. I just used to think being agreeable meant being loved. It doesn't, it just means being available. If the people who raised you only seem to want you around when you're useful, that was never the whole relationship. That was just the part of it they were willing to show you. That's the story. One ledger nobody thought to check twice, one timestamp that couldn't be talked out of existing, and one signature I never gave them. If somebody in your family has you filed away as the convenient one, tell me below. I answer every single comment on these. Subscribe if you want to see where the next one goes. I'll see you there.